If you're very red-pilled, and by that I just mean very cynical about the world, and you kind of see through a lot of things about society and, I don't know, the world at large that other people don't, and you have a lot of, like, kind of bitterness and scorn towards a lot of the systems that most people kind of take for granted. Could be the job market or the way education is now or anything about the world. There's some pros and cons with that. The pros are that you can kind of move through the world and manipulate it in ways other people don't even like understand, and you can get quite far ahead of other people by doing that if you just understand how arbitrary and meaningless some things are and what really matters. But it also has cons. So the biggest one I would say is it kind of inflates your ego if you're constantly seeing these things about the world and realizing them and other people don't. Like, you can feel very superior to people. It can give you a kind of superiority complex if you're realizing things about the world. And in general, just like if you're someone who's smart, if you're someone who's in software or programming or Linux or some field that takes like a lot of dedication and knowledge, you can feel kind of superior to other people who don't have that. And like there's so many examples of this across all different things. Software is one of the great ones. Like the people who just use Windows, they're so inferior to me. But it can happen at all different levels. This only really becomes a problem when you outwardly like flex it on someone, which I've done a few times. And what kind of triggered this video was during my last portfolio roasting, where I was like brutally roasting my friend Nicholas, I got so carried away in how like vibe coded everything was and how many problems that I very effortlessly and kind of thoughtlessly just slipped into like roasting him on like a personal level, you know? I don't know if you got to the end of that, but like I was questioning his like religious upbringing, and also like at the very end I was like, if you're so stuck in so many thought loops and so many things like this, you could try psychedelics, which is, I don't know, going to that personal level is very unnecessary. And I've done it other times too. Like there was a nutrition class, if you haven't heard this story, where I really hated the way it was set up. It was like, for me, the epitome of bloat in higher education, and I confronted the teacher about it. And I mean, all of my points were valid, and I kind of think all my points were valid in the other case too. But someone pointed out in my comments, and I think very rightly, that it doesn't really achieve anything, because these people that you think are so inferior based on certain things they do they're not inferior to you in any way. They're just like, they've moved through the world in a different way that's given them different experiences. And to confront someone like up front about something like that is pretty earth-shattering. And I often find it because people get very uncomfortable, not in like an uncomfortable way, like you're threatening them. Like you're threatening them kind of on an existential level. You know, when you call into question all of their entire life, like I did to that nutrition teacher or this friend, like especially you call into question tons and tons of years of work they've done or things they've thought for a very long time. And it gets especially bad if you're like pretty persuasive and your points actually have some validity to them. Like another problematic thing about being very red-pilled and like having a big ego about it is it can blind you to some things that like you think the whole system is bad, but there are some necessities in it. For instance, like the whole jobs we were doing, kind of corporate nothing things. Like a lot of programmers hate HR people because they consider like they make a good amount of money for such like a trivial and easy job, and like it's just so made up. And while some of that's true, there's a good amount of validity to that, and like tons of companies just kind of move data around and don't do a whole lot. It is necessary because there's so many people that need to make money to make a living, to raise families, to make more people, and like they need to use that money to like buy things and fuel the efforts of other companies. You know, it's like a whole intricate structure. And just because other people aren't as like cynical and notice so many things about the world and are as insane as you at Linux knowledge or something, doesn't mean they're not valuable. They're certainly like more inside the system. They're more susceptible to it all. But that doesn't make their experience like just as a person worthless. So the problem is, when you do something like that, as I've done many times, and actually there are other examples to it, the thing is when you confront someone at such a deep level and you like kind of show them all these cynical beliefs that break down their entire worldview and all this work that they've done, it's quite traumatizing on like an existential level. And I've noticed it whenever I do it. Like there was some girl taking some major or something that was like communications or business, and I was like breaking that all down and like how that's an entire scam, and like I had all this great reasoning and great logical arguments that she had no comeback or no retort for. Sorry, there's an airplane taking off. The thing is, doesn't really get you anything. I'm not sure the people I've done that to change. You're just kind of torturing them on an existential level. I've never like followed up with any of these people to see if what I've said has affected them, but I do know sometimes like I'm very cynical around my closest friends, and they kind of start to pick up a lot of cynicism too. So it may do something, but it's really like ripping the Band-Aid off of someone's entire existence to go and just unleash all your hate towards the communications or business major, you know, and say you're wasting your time. You know this is all meaningless, right? Like, I mean, look at this homework assignment you're doing. Just look at like these problems they're having you do. Like, this is just brain dead. And another great example is the video I made about Bash Bunny and other YouTubers. I kind of pulled my punches for the most part there, but she left some comment that kind of provoked me into revealing my whole beliefs about how I think like her whole persona is kind of fake, and you can see the reasons attached there, but I don't want to make this about internet drama. The point is, like, words can hurt, but sometimes not using them can cause more damage in the long run. But that's like just such an instance of like such a petty and useless thing to critique, you know, like it's just like someone's personality. Even though it like really would offend me if someone talked like she did in real life to me, like I'd feel like a child, and I know other YouTubers who do that too. It's like, what did that really achieve other than just me being a dick? Yeah, it doesn't get you anywhere. But my problem is, I don't care about getting the Band-Aid ripped off. Like, it doesn't hurt my feelings. If someone were to be like my whole, I don't know. This is somewhat of a bad and lesser example. But for instance, when I was roasting Nicholas and like went into his like religious upbringing and all that stuff and personal character that I think is like questionable and like not red-pilled enough, you know, he was like, and several other people in my comments were like, man, just so you know, that's like a pretty brutal and harsh way to like treat people. You won't really get a lot out of that other than like just you'll look like a dick. But and like I heard that, and like that's partly why I'm making this video, just so other people don't do that kind of thing. But the thing is, like, I love to hear that because it improved my experience of the world, you know. Now that I know to not do that, like that was something I'd never seen before, and it like improved me in a great way. So it's like I kind of feel the same way saying the same kind of things to other people, like communications major who spent all these years doing it, and I just like roast their entire existence. Like if that were me in their shoes, I would rather be broken out of the matrix than stay there kind of in an indefinite. And I don't know, because I think a lot more people have more cynicism and red-pilled tendencies deep down than we give them credit for. They're often quite willing to accept some of these ideas. They're just like, it's so difficult when everything else they know kind of goes against it. You also have to be very careful with this stuff and think very carefully, because cynicism is great. It's great to try to break outside of things and figure out new ways to fix the world. I mean, that's kind of essential. It's essential that there's a small percentage of people that are trying to do that. Thing is, it can lead you to like very reactionary and problematic ideas if it's left unchecked. You know, there can be problematic things that you're just blinded to, because you get into this loop of like seeing yourself be able to just walk circles around other people mentally. I know that's not true, but that's sometimes what it feels like. You're just like so much more aware of everything than someone else. And when you get into that loop, you can kind of keep just inflating your ego until you think like there's nothing that I can say that could be wrong. It's such like a loaded thing too. And I would consider intelligence here too. Some people have asked me like, do you consider yourself a genius? Which is, as most people know, a very loaded question, because it kind of like challenges humility against intelligence, you know. And to just throw humility aside, I'm not all that humble. Like, I kind of do consider myself a genius because of how aware I am of like even meta things like this, you know, like just the fact that I don't know, I'll get back to that in a second, but an argument I think that leads into it well is you can fail to consider certain things. Like you may think you're very smart, but just consider the Dunning-Kruger effect. You could be just like on the cusp of, you know, realizing that everything you know is a lie, and the real intelligence all along was just going along with the system, you know? And then there's other parallel arguments to that where, so that kind of gets into like, the problem with like thinking you're a genius, thinking you're smart. I don't know if genius, that's kind of hyperbolic, but it's kind of an endlessly self-feeding cycle. Because if I consider what I just said about the Dunning-Kruger effect, and I think like I'm the kind of person that's so like meta aware about my own intelligence, I can consider some psychological effect and like apply it from previous, you know, and it's like I'm like on one hand criticizing my own intelligence and saying, well, I could just be like completely delusional here. And on the other hand, I'm like, well, the very fact that I can recognize and mediate that I could be completely delusional is like a sign of great intelligence, you know, and that loop can kind of continue infinitely. Like the more you realize that, the more you become aware of your own intelligence and how you're monitoring it and how like what your weaknesses could be, the more you think you're a genius. Yeah, so it's kind of like an endless loop like that. I guess back to like criticizing normies, as you would call them. I mean, most people are a lot more complicated than they're just normies. It's just like the conditions that they were brought up in, you know, and most people are capable of very advanced logical thought, so it's bad to dismiss anyone just because they don't have your knowledge. So the problem is with criticizing them, right? It's not just in the fact either that I'm red-pilled, it's the fact that like some of my routines are just, I feel so superior to other people. Like for instance, I just like listen to tons of audiobooks, I exercise all the time, I just work on like actual meaningful work, and I spend all my time trying to improve at those things. It's all these things in combination that are like contribute to superiority. It's not just the fact that you like think more deeply and more cynically about the world, but I feel like my whole process just is putting me daily like ahead of other people. And I'm like, it's not that my friends who watch TikTok or Instagram Reels are like worse people at all. It's just like the routine has compounded over time to make all of their beliefs kind of shallow, and has trained them into habits of immediate gratification, and they don't think in like the same way, and that can also make you feel superior. But if you've ever had any kind of vice, you know, I mean, think back to the time that was at its worst height. Maybe it's video games for you. Like, okay, target yourself in 7th grade, you know, when you were just playing tons of video games and didn't really read or anything. It just because like they're at the same age as you are now, or that they're like fighting these vices later in life, doesn't mean they're worse people. It's easy to forget that you have come a long way, and most likely were also kind of like that at one point and believe certain things that you now have amended. So it's kind of easy to look at someone and say, oh, they're so pathetic, they're so stuck in their ways, when you 2 years ago kind of were stuck in other ways and you've changed now. It gets a little bit blurry across like age and like age boundaries, you know, like me confronting a like PhD candidate who's like 15 years older than me makes it feel like, wow, this person has wasted so much of their life in this designing this horrible course. But on the other hand, it's not so much like she probably has crazy experiences in other areas I don't even know anything about, you know. I just skill maxed into this one area. And it's the same thing with anything. Like, you could know way more about Linux than someone 40 years older, like your grandmother, you know, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have an entire lifetime of very valuable wisdom. But there are also people that kind of go through their whole lives never really questioning anything. So that's not like a blanket, I don't know, but yeah, just be aware of that. Be aware that your understanding progresses over time, and don't take like the snapshot you see of someone as like the final state that they'll end up in, because everyone constantly learns throughout their life. The other last thing I wanted to touch on with it is I do want to kind of like, as I said, break people out of these like matrix-like prisons. This all sounds so schizophrenic, and I guess I didn't attach enough concrete examples. I'm just kind of relying on the fact that a lot of you have watched all my other videos, or just kind of know the kind of like Luke Smith cynical thinking that I'm talking about. But anyway, I kind of want to break these people out, but doing it so brutally like is really tough for some people. And yeah, it's a bad way to do it. I think one great way to do it is through something like YouTube, or just general like throwing out kind of a statement about a group of people but not targeting anyone. That's really good, because I think it allows people to self-diagnose. Like, they get all this information and it kind of slowly seeps into them that, oh shoot, maybe I'm the type of person that is kind of indoctrinated into this belief, and maybe that's not good. And it feels a lot less like a personal attack, because you are coming to the conclusion internally. I know that's worked a lot for me in the past. Like, you can't just sit someone down. I've kind of thought about this with my friends. Like, there's some people in an English class we've had that were just like saying really, really dumb things, you know? Like, what if you just took them and you just sat them down and you explained why that thing was dumb and like how their whole life was a lie, and like all this stuff they're saying is just surface level, and like there's so much more to it. Yes, you could probably like drill a ton of information and understanding into them at once, but they might be so like shocked and offended and affronted, they would kind of just like take all that information and like hold it, kind of contain it and not act on it because it's so shattering and so uncomfortable for them. And it's better and much more effective to let people slowly come to their own conclusions. The problem is, like, the average normie isn't going to be on based YouTube, you know, or be reading like crazy blogs or deep philosophy and really understanding it. And there are a lot more people that are doing that than it probably appears like, just from the online communities that you know of, because that kind of stuff is going on everywhere. Conversations between friends and small groups of people, and like a lot of offline stuff and online stuff that's just kind of more hidden. The thing is, like, I think there's a big chunk of the population, not as much as maybe you think, but maybe 80%, that could really benefit from like watching this kind of very meta, self-aware content. And like, even people you consider extreme normies, you know, if you formatted things in a right enough way that wasn't as like go crush someone's soul, you could get them to change a lot of their beliefs. I don't think most people are as like past hope as we in the red-pilled, open source, optimal guys community think they are. But yeah, that's, I guess, about it for this one. And the message is, I don't know what the message is, actually, because I'm still honestly not sure if the things I've done to people have been good or bad for them overall. You can often tell how close to home you hit. Like, I consider, sometimes I think you could miss fire and like not see someone totally through, not see through them and like attack them in the right way, attack the right beliefs. But I think a lot of the time I do, and I can tell that because if you like say something is wrong about someone, like, oh, you did this and this and that's so problematic, if you don't hit the nail on the head, people like to correct you, and they'll often tell you like, no, that's not the case. But they kind of, they're not that offended by it. They're just like, you weirdo, what are you trying to tell me? But if you do hit the nail on the head, you get more of a freak out reaction where people are like, oh shit, this person just saw it all the way through my soul, you know? And all these things I've been thinking deep down, they know them all. Like, oh no, has it been all that transparent all along? People like freak out and they deny and they like try to come up with desperate excuses, even when like I've clearly kind of cornered them. And yeah, I think it's like, it's a pretty terrible feeling to be cornered. Like, just imagine that nutrition teacher like saying that she didn't steal things from Quizlet when like I literally have empirical evidence that she did. I didn't like bring that evidence out and again just like smack her down and be like, okay, then explain this, because that would just be like next level, like, what do you do? You're a trapped animal in a corner. But even that first thing, like, when people freak out, I can really tell. I've done it to like random girls before too. Like, some girl I was texting, I thought, just in the way that you kind of try random things when you're flirting with people, you know, I wonder if she would be interesting if I like just unleashed all my psychoanalysis on her. And that sounds really weird, but it was really weird. And I knew immediately, like, it doesn't matter exactly what I said, but like I hit the nail way too close, and she was like, what the fuck? Like, it just makes people really uncomfortable when you're able to just see through them in a certain way that they don't expect. And I'm not saying that's not a good thing to do, but you have to do it in the right environment when someone is already very comfortable with you. Doing it to kind of people you know somewhat well often just freaks them out hugely. Yeah, that's about it for this one. I want to hear your thoughts though. Like, is doing this to people bad or good? It has like severe negative consequences, but it also might have a good, positive, long-term effect. In some ways, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough thing to do, and as of right now, I'm gonna really like, I've only done it maybe 5 or 6 times to an extreme, but I don't want to do it again really until I know exactly what the effects of such behavior can be. I know it can be destructive in terms that it gives you like, it makes you look very bad to a lot of other people, but that's not too much of a worry to me, to be honest, because the people that really I care about the opinion of will like see what I'm saying has some validity to it, because I at least like to think I'm not some schizophrenic who's just like completely off the rails about everything and the way the world works and psychoanalyzing people. Like I don't know, the way I moderate both sides and kind of make sure that I'm not going too far in one direction just makes me think that what I'm saying is important somehow. But I don't know, I could just be completely crazy, hard to tell, could all just be in a simulation or fever dream, but no point in getting that existential. You just gotta play the game that you're in. But yeah, that's it. See you next time.